Last Friday, Bloomberg reported that Nvidia has told its largest customers, Microsoft, Google, Oracle, that servers built with its AI chips will cost more than 15% burst starting early next year. Vera Rubin Systems, Grace Blackwell Systems. The price hike applies across generations. Nvidia didn't raise prices because it wanted to. It raised prices because the cost of memory forced its hand. HBM4, the stacked memory sitting next to every GPU and every AI accelerator, now costs roughly $500 per unit, up from about $350 for HBM3E. SK Hynix's production costs went up 50% because the base die now has to be manufactured at TSMC. All of that increase got passed straight through to Nvidia, and Nvidia passed it to its customers. 5 months ago, we made a video about SK Hynix the week it listed on the NASDAQ. The question then was whether the world's most profitable memory company was standing at the top of a supercycle. Since that video, SK Hynix reported its second quarter revenue 79.3 trillion yuan, operating margin 76%. First half revenue crossed 100 trillion yuan for the first time in company history. Revenue up 257% year over year. Operating profit up 557%. The supercycle question hasn't been answered, but the pricing power question has. When your product is so scarce that the most valuable chip maker on earth has to raise its own prices by 15% just to cover your cost increase, that's not a cycle, that's a tax. If SK Hynix were content to keep collecting that tax, this would be a short video. Sell HBM and collect margins, return cash to shareholders. It announced a $28.7 billion share buyback on August 20th, with a commitment to return more than 50% of cumulative free cash flow through 2027. At the rate it's generating cash, that could exceed $175 billion over 3 years. But on the same day it announced that buyback, SK Hynix did something that got far less attention. It published a paper in Nature Electronics, one of the most prestigious scientific journals in the field, laying out a technology roadmap for co-packaged optics. Not authored by a university lab using SK Hynix funding. Co-authored by the head of SK Hynix's own AI infrastructure team, alongside researchers from the University of Virginia, MIT, the University of Illinois, Nanyang Technological University, and Yonsei. Co-packaged optics, CPO, is a technology we covered in depth in our Broadcom video earlier this year. It moves optical transceivers from pluggable modules on the front of a switch to the substrate right next to the processor, eliminating the copper bottleneck between chip and optics. Broadcom has already shipped 3 generations. TSMC's Coupe platform is scaling photonic integrated circuit capacity by 30 times over 3 years. CPO is real, it's in production, and right now it's a story about networking companies and foundries. SK Hynix's paper changes the frame. Their proposal doesn't stop at connecting processors to switches. It extends optical interconnects all the way to the memory interface, using a photonic interposer to link processor pools and memory pools directly through light. Multiple AI accelerators sharing a single large capacity memory pool, connected optically instead of through copper traces on a circuit board. The targets they set, more than 100 terabits per second per node. Energy below 1 picojoule per bit. Chip-to-chip latency under 10 nanoseconds. The numbers are aspirational. This is a roadmap, not a product announcement. But the intent is not aspirational at all. SDX Central called it a strategic defense mechanism. And that framing is exactly right. Here's why. Compute throughput has been growing roughly 3 times every 2 years. Interconnect bandwidth has grown about 1.4 times over the same period. That gap, the bandwidth wall, is the reason CPU exists. But if the optical interconnect revolution reaches the processor to switch link and stops there, HBM's connection to the GPU is still copper, still limited by the physics of electrical signaling over short distances. SK Hynix is making sure that when the industry rewires itself with light, HBM doesn't get left on the wrong side of that transition. This isn't the only direction SK Hynix is expanding. In our HBM packaging video, episode 18, we laid out a problem. SK Hynix manufactures the single most critical component in every AI accelerator, but it has zero control over how that component gets assembled. HBM ships from Korea to Taiwan, gets packaged by TSMC using CoWoS, and goes to Nvidia. The scheduling, the yield, the allocation, all decided by TSMC. SK Hynix is changing that. It approved a 19 trillion won investment to build the PN7 advanced packaging facility in Changzhou, targeting completion by the end of 2027. It broke ground on a $3.87 billion plant in West Lafayette, Indiana, the first HBM packaging facility in the United States, with CHIPS Act support totaling $950 million in grants and loans, aiming for production in the second half of 2028. And it's running parallel tests with Intel's EMIB substrate technology as an alternative to CoWoS. Memory, packaging, optical interconnects, 3 layers of the AI chip stack. SK Hynix is moving into all 3 at the same time. It doesn't want to be a component supplier that hands its product to someone else to assemble and connect. It wants to control the path data travels, from the memory die, through the package, through the optical link, end to end. The ambition is clear. Whether it's achievable is a different question. Every front SK Hynix is opening has an incumbent that isn't standing still. In memory, Micron just reported $41.5 billion in quarterly revenue with an 85% gross margin, and it's built something SK Hynix hasn't matched. 16 take-or-pay strategic customer agreements locking in $100 billion in minimum revenue with $22 billion in upfront cash deposits. Samsung is behind on HBM qualification, but still commands roughly 21% market share. And CXMT, the company we covered alongside Apple in episode 4, keeps expanding in conventional DRAM, with ASPs now within 5 to 10% of the incumbents and 99% of output going into the segments the big 3 walked away from. In packaging, TSMC's CoWoS remains the dominant platform. Nvidia alone takes roughly 60% of capacity, and it's sold out through 2027. Intel's EMIB has reached 90% verification yield, but the gap from 90 to the 98% production standard is where most packaging technologies stall. SK Hynix's own packaging plants don't produce meaningful volume until 2028 at the earliest. Until then, it still depends on the company it's trying to reduce dependence on. In optical interconnects, Broadcom has shipped 3 generations of CPO products, Humboldt, Bailey, Davison, spanning 25.6 terabits to 102.4 terabits of switching capacity. Nvidia's Quantum-X Q3 is in production with CPO. TSMC's Coupe platform is ramping photonic capacity at an unprecedented rate. SK Hynix's CPO contribution, as of today, is a peer-reviewed paper. The distance between a Nature Electronics publication and a shipping product is measured in years, not quarters. SK Hynix has one card that none of these competitors hold. It controls 58% of global HBM production. As long as every AI accelerator needs HBM, every customer in the chain, Nvidia, the hyperscalers, the server manufacturers, needs SK Hynix's cooperation. That leverage is what funds the 3-front expansion and what gives partners a reason to collaborate rather than compete. But leverage built on supply scarcity has a shelf life. Micron's Idaho fab targets first wafers by mid-2027. Samsung is investing aggressively in Pyeongtaek. SK Hynix's own capacity additions, Yongin, Changzhou, Indiana, don't fully come online until 2028. The window where 58% market share translates into architectural influence is open now. It won't stay open forever. 3 dates worth watching. August 27th, the West Lafayette groundbreaking ceremony, the same day Nvidia reports earnings. Whether Nvidia's management confirms the memory cost pressure on that call will tell you how durable the pricing power really is. Second, Intel's EMIB production timeline expected before year-end. If it hits 98% yield, SK Hynix gains a real packaging alternative and TSMC's monopoly cracks. Third, the gap between SK Hynix's CPO roadmap and its first working prototype. That's when the market will know whether the Nature Electronics paper was a research exercise or the blueprint for a different kind of company.